When it comes to innovation and shaping the future, you don't need all the answers, but you do need space to think differently. We're launching a special 6-part B.R.A.V.E Human Leadership series in collaboration with our strategic partner, the Human Leadership Institute. In this series, we explore what it really takes to lead through change, a challenge more and more leaders are facing every day. At TomorrowZone, we help leaders shaping the future of business and technology to pause, reframe, and reimagine how they move forward so that they can lead with clarity, empathy, and purpose. Are you ready to think differently? Start your breakthrough at tomorrowzone.io. And now, on to the show. Welcome to the TomorrowZone Catalyst Podcast, where we are exploring the future of leadership, innovation, and transformation. I'm your host, Deborah Reuben, and in this special 6-episode series, we're diving deep into what it really takes to lead in a rapidly changing world. And we're not just talking about leadership buzzwords that you hear all over the place. We're talking about B.R.A.V.E human leadership. This is a research-backed framework built on belonging, resilience, authenticity, vulnerability, and empathy. And these are those human-centered leadership skills that drive real impact, foster innovation, and create those cultures where people and businesses can truly thrive. Joining me throughout this series is my friend, Jen Croneberger, founder and chief inspiration officer of the Human Leadership Institute and a leading expert in relational leadership. Together, we're exploring the science, strategy, and stories behind B.R.A.V.E leadership and why it's more essential now than ever. So let's continue our conversation with the R in B.R.A.V.E, resilience. Jen, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, Deb. It's always a pleasure. Anytime I get to spend with you, this is gold for me. So thanks for
Likewise, our collaborations are so dang fun.
Yeah,
it's so great just to be able to wake up in the morning and love what you do.
That's right.
And, positively impact people along the way. So let's talk about resilience. Why is resilience one of the most underrated leadership skills?
That's a great question. In thinking about this, I was thinking about leadership in general. And, we talk a lot about leadership in terms of strategy, sometimes execution, vision, right? You hear those words kind of come up. But resilience, to me, that's the heartbeat of leadership. It really is what allows us to keep going when the path gets messy or hard to navigate. To be able to hold space for others, even when we're carrying our own weight, which we've all done, and to show up, right? Not just when it's easy, but when it's about the most difficult thing you can do. We've all had those moments where, just showing up is hard. Without resilience, even the most talented leaders can burn out. They can struggle to adapt when challenges pop up. And I think it's really the key to sustained impact and long-term success, if you look at resilience for what it is. So think about it this way. Resilience to me is the ability to stand in the storm, not because we're unshaken, but because we know how to bend without breaking. And yet it's often overlooked, right? Because we assume that leaders are just supposed to be strong. Like that should just be a thing. But real strength isn't about never falling. It's about that getting up over and over again, right? Which we hear about. But it's, again, it's not just something that we have to do. It becomes part of who we are.
Can you say that again? The stand in the storm.
It's the ability to stand in the storm, not because we are unshaken, but because we know how to bend without breaking.
That right there. I love that. Bend without breaking. Because it really embraces the reality of life.
Absolutely.
I'm working with a team right now that's going through a very wicked and tricky digital transformation. And they're just on the edge of awesome. And this is actually the time where it gets worse. It's the storm part of the project. And most people aren't prepared for it. And it's really, really, really tough. And so this is the time where, coming in and really, supporting those leaders to be able to stand strong without bending or breaking when you have issues coming at you from all sides. Yeah, it is not easy. And I think it's important to recognize that this is a normal part of life.
Yep.
But, we live in such a rapidly changing world with, especially the rapid pace of technology change. It's not slowing down. My mind is being blown almost on a daily basis now. And I was just, and of course, like I can't go a day without talking about AI. And I love talking about this with you because I think that resilience is actually going to be a really important trait for leaders to thrive in the future that's already here.
For sure. Yep.
And
it'd be imperative, really.
Yeah. I started using AI in 2016. I started speaking about my experience with AI in 2018. But at that time, I started really tracking like just how many apps are there out there. And I used to be able to present and show, here's all of them on one slide.
That's great.
And now there's actually an AI powered website. There's an AI for that tracks all the AI applications. And I've been tracking this over the years. And so in November, I was presenting on AI at a national conference, and there were about 20,000 AI applications. I checked again yesterday, over 30,000.
What? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, and to me, it's just another indicator of just how fast things are changing and how much noise is out there. And it's a storm of change. And so, back to resilience. What are some of the common blockers to developing that resilience? And as leaders, how can we overcome that so that we can stand strong in the storms?
So I think there are a few things that naturally get in the way of resilience. And honestly, I think they show up for all of us at some point. And one big one that I see, and again, kind of drawing from my sports psychology background, one that I see often is perfectionism. Perfectionism is the belief that we just have to, we have to get it just right? Or we failed. It's like 100% or nothing. And that's it, right? And the truth is that perfectionism is the enemy of resilience, because instead we need to really embrace, what I know that you refer to as the messy middle, right? It's that space in between, the space where we learn, we grow, we evolve. And that space is key to getting to the other side. I think another one that I see come up a lot, and this happens both in kind of corporate settings and in homes, right? This can happen anywhere, and that's a lack of boundaries.
Ooh, okay, let's dive into that, because I'm hearing this all the time with my clients.
Me too. So think about when we say yes to everything, which is a lack of boundary, we drain ourselves to the point of exhaustion. I mean, that's just what happens. We see it happen constantly. I've done it. I know that this was always a downfall for me. It's like, yes, I'll do it for you. I hated saying no.
It's easy saying yes.
Yeah, right? Like, oh, I'll do that for you. Even if I'm like on the inside, no, why are you doing
right.
And really, when we get to that point of exhaustion, what happens is typically we just try to keep going somehow. And resilience isn't about pushing through no matter what. Resilience truly is about knowing when to pause, when to breathe, and when to actually protect our own energy. Typically, as humans, we're not great at that because, like we just said, we want to help people. We're human fixers, right? So we're yes, I can do it. There was even books about like, say yes, say yes all the time, right? And I think, while that's a powerful concept, if you're working on trying to get rid of fear, I think the idea of saying yes too much is really what causes our boundaries to just collapse.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And we're seeing that. It's really hard to have that resilience muscle when you don't have the boundary around it.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So many great analogies and examples of this. And I was thinking about sport, of course, but also just even in business, when it comes to this part of building resilience and being able to say no.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a scary thing for people. And, I've even experienced this myself. I've been working on it. And now I'm to the point where I'm actually celebrating my nose.
Yeah.
Not my nose on my face, but when I say no.
Not that nose. Yeah.
I just had like a Far Side cartoon pop into my head right there. Let's celebrate my nose. Yeah.
Eyes are tomorrow.
My glasses on really well. Anyway. But I was thinking about just how hard it can be to say no and, actually tracking those wins when I do. And one thing I have found is that when I do say no to things that are not completely aligned with where I want to go in life.
Yeah.
Even though it's hard in the moment to do that, because you want so much to just please people and say yes. And sometimes it feels like you're losing something when you say no. What am I giving up? But I have found that whenever I do that, amazingly, the door opens for something so much bigger and so much better. And these opportunities are things I would not have been able to embrace or attain had I not said no to something less.
And that's a key. We talk about that a lot, that, saying no allows you to say yes to something even bigger, right? It's exactly.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, if I handed you a whole fistful of gold coins right now, and you grab them with your hands, to hold on to them, you kind of have to go like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now I bring to you something way more valuable. You can't grab that because now I'm holding on to these things and I can't get that without letting go of this. And so the idea is sometimes we have to let go of the things that we're holding on to so tight that we think are the things, when we really kind of do a little deep dive internally and recognize maybe that isn't the thing. And let go of that so that my hands are open for something else and something bigger.
That visual actually was really powerful because my mind took it to another level. I was thinking about, if I'm holding on to the gold coins, I can hold so much less in my fist when I'm holding on so tightly. But when I open up my hands, I could hold a really large gold bar.
Exactly.
Lean and jerk it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that is really powerful. So, this is such an important skill for us to build so that we can thrive in the future. But how should leaders model resilience for their teams?
So, truthfully, it starts with us, right? It starts with us as leaders saying, look, if we want our teams to be resilient, we have to show them what it looks like. This is where I think we fall short sometimes. We assume we're just going to teach you, right? But I don't have to model it. I'm just going to teach you, what to do. I think one of the first things that leaders can do is to be transparent. And not just transparent about, things that are easy, but be transparent about challenges. I think, what I have noticed over time is our teams don't need us to be perfect. They need us to be real. We, when we share our struggles, not in a way that burdens others, like I'm not going to come dump all my stuff on you, but in a way that kind of invites them into the learning with you, we create the permission for them to do the same.
Mm.
That's everything. When you're giving your team that opportunity to see you as a human being, it helps them do the same. And through that, we're also normalizing emotions. A lot of people are not at work. Oh no, we can't show emotion. Resilience isn't about shutting down feelings. It's about kind of moving through them. And this is really important in the work setting that, we've really come to a place, I think, where we recognize We can't go through work as a human being and leave part of us at home. It doesn't work that way, right? And so, we're recognizing the emotion that we have, regardless of what's happening outside of work, what's happening inside of work, and we're allowing them to show up. When we hold space for ourselves and others to feel that, we're also creating trust. And we can't do anything without trust, right? Trust builds strong, resilient teams who we see will go through a wall for each other. But the third piece to that, actually, I have a story, if I can share this, to kind of bring this to light. It's about adaptability, right? We have to be able to practice adaptability as a leader. Things are going to go wrong. Plans are going to change. We've seen this, right? The question is not whether challenges are going to come, because they will. It's how we respond to them when they do. Are we reacting from a place of fear, or are we taking a breath, recalibrating, and finding a new way forward? So during the COVID pandemic, I was working with a hospital, and every day I watched these people flex their resilience muscle. And every day they got things wrong. They adapted on the fly. They learned really fast that they had to do it together. There was no way for them to kind of be in these siloed departments. They didn't have a choice. And there were moments where I watched the president of the hospital or other, top tier executives of the hospital in a gown, in masks and gloves, walking the floors to make sure that their people were okay. They were lending a hand whenever they could. It wasn't something they chose. It was where we were at the time. It was what was needed from them. And they leaned into the messy parts. Really, truly, I watched that just enough so they had each other's backs. And it was amazing to see. When you think about that time, it was brutal. It was a brutal time on everyone. But what I saw in that place, to me, was kind of this otherworldly thing going on, this almost superhuman thing. And it connected them in an even more impactful way because they had that shared experience together. And so what came from that was this different closeness that they shared. They walked through this together. They had each other's backs, and they knew what real resilience looked like. And that was paramount. So I think, that's a life-changing experience. But I watched as they did that, and it was, resilience there was no option other than that.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting how much trust plays a role in the ability of a team to develop resilience. One of the things you talked about earlier is it's not about perfection. It's about being real and a real part of life, especially, as we're learning new things all the time, is we're going to have failures along the way. And, I just wonder, what are some ways that we can help teams to, we're not planning to fail.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But we do need to embrace that failures will happen along the way. And the real failure is when you're not learning from those experiences. So how do we help teams really embrace failure as a learning tool?
So we like to talk about failure as kind of, it's this thing that happens without emotion attached to it. It really just is feedback. That's all failure is. It's not the opposite of success. Some people see it's success versus failure. That's actually not true. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the path to it. But too often, I think we treat failure as something to avoid or something that defines us. And we have to shift this mindset a little bit. And so here's kind of a framework of how to shift this mindset. Number one is we have to reframe failure. Instead of asking what went wrong, ask what did we learn? Remember, language shapes culture, right? So it's how we're saying things that is key. And then the second piece to that is we have to debrief without blame. It's really easy to try to find blame. Well, who did it? Who's responsible? And instead of pointing fingers, I think we need to ask, how do we grow from this? This isn't on you or you. It's a team effort. So it's a we. How do we grow from this naturally? And then the third piece is to celebrate effort. We don't do enough of that in general. Success isn't just about results. It's about courage. It's about stepping into the unknown. And even in those moments, we have to celebrate that. Did we take a step off the cliff? We did. Awesome. That's great. Because through that, I think what culminates from that is building psychological safety. When people know that they can take risks without the fear of judgment, they're going to show up fully. And the truth is, failure is not the end of the story. It's a chapter in it. I think the most resilient teams learn how to turn that page and turn it quickly.
Yeah, that is so important. I just love this framework. Reframe. What did you learn? Debrief without blame and celebrate the effort, because it does take a lot of effort to try something new, to stretch your comfort zone, to get into the space where you can actually believe that a new future really is possible. And then, generate the energy and the commitment to actually take action toward making that future real. And so, I think that is such a powerful practice. It is something that we do practice at TomorrowZone, and we have been with the team since 2020. We started doing reflections and retrospectives, just a quick exercise. But after everything we do, we stop and we look at intentionally what went really well that we would want to continue, and what did we learn that we could do for next time? What didn't go so well, and what are we learning from it? How do we roll that into how we do something different the next time? And from that, we have been able to very rapidly generate new capabilities. We've been able to multiply the effectiveness of the team, but also it's built into our DNA now as a team.
That's right. Yeah.
It isn't an event for us. It's a habit and a practice. And so we are continually learning from everything we do. And it's just been incredible to see how fast and how far we've been able to go because we're practicing that. And so I think that, this is probably one of the most important things that we need right now, especially, and I'm going to go back to the hot topic of the day, which is AI again. So many people are in this zone where they're just learning and coming up to speed on something that's so new and is continually changing. You have to embrace this mindset if you want to be successful.
Sure. Yep. No, that's key. I love that.
Last question for you. You talked a lot about, just kind of indirectly like self-care in this process and protecting your energy, stopping, pausing, taking a breath, which just even in my interactions with you, I now am reminded to do that. I even have a sticky note now in front of me that says to breathe. It's just small, tiny shifts that make such a huge difference.
Yeah.
But what role does self-compassion play in developing resilience?
So, you touched on those two pieces, self-care, self-compassion. I think they go together, right? If you're running on empty, your team not just sees it, they feel it. And I think when leaders model healthy boundaries, right? Self-care, self-compassion, they're giving their teams permission to do the same. It's the same thing. And, think about it. What time are you responding to an email? Are your teams expected to do the same? When you are on PTO, what does the O actually stand for? On or off, right?
Oh,
I
yeah,
ask that question a lot. Yeah. The examples and precedents you set is what your team will assume is expected of them. I think on the compassion side, so often we are our own worst critics, right? We can all say that. We offer grace and compassion to everyone else, but we forget to give it to ourselves. And I see that constantly with leaders who are really striving to be, the best possible version of themselves, but they leave this part out. And to me, I think self-compassion is that missing piece in resilience. It's what allows us to acknowledge that we're doing the best we can with what we have. It's what helps us forgive ourselves when we fall short, and kind of to extend that kindness to the person in the mirror, not just the person standing in front of you. And look, here's the truth. If we don't practice self-compassion, we're going to burn out. And that's just real, because resilience isn't about pushing harder. It's about knowing when to let go.
Wow. That is a very timely message.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I mean, I'm running into people continually that need those words right now.
Yep. Good.
So, in wrapping this up, as I mentioned, there are a lot of people who are on the edge of burnout right now, and a lot of leaders are stretched so thin. What's one practice that you would recommend them starting today to build that resilience that they need?
Gosh, just one. Truthfully, I'm going to make this very simple because, again, it's like if you're in that space, you can't possibly take on one more thing. I'm going to make this really easy. And I would say, if you take nothing else from this episode, listen to this clearly. And the word is pause. Just for a moment, one deep breath, one intentional moment of stillness or silence. Think about resilience as not being in the big dramatic moments. It's built in the small ones. It's built in the daily and often minute to minute choices to slow down, to breathe, to reset. So right now, if you're sitting here and you're feeling stretched thin as you're listening to this, give yourself the permission to pause, to maybe step away for 5 minutes, to move your body, to journal, to check in with yourself. Go stand outside and just breathe in the fresh air. Whatever it is, allow your body the moment to reset. It's like we're just kind of trying to get through 1,001 things in a row without plugging our laptop back in or plugging our phone in. And so, it's the battery's dead. Okay, well, what do we do when we know the battery is about to die? We look at it, right? We pick up our phone. We're like, ooh, I'm on 2%. I need to go find a charger. Okay, maybe don't wait till we get to 2%, number one. Number two, we go find the charger. We don't do that, though, to ourselves. So we have to be intentional about making sure that we're plugging back in, even for a few minutes to recharge. That giving yourself that strength to build that resilience muscle. That's how it works.
Love it. Jen, that was so powerful. Thank you for sharing your insights on brave human leadership.
My pleasure.
And for our listeners, what resonated for you? What is one thing you're taking away from this that you're going to apply in your day-to-day? Let's keep this conversation going. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, visit TomorrowZone.io, and you can explore Jen's work at the Human Leadership Institute. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to subscribe, share it with a colleague who might need to hear this. And until next time, stay curious and choose to make awesome happen.